house smells of cornbread, fried potatoes, and silence. Not the kind that crushes your ears, but the kind where two men, father and grown son, live easily side by side. We talk little, the way men often do, but we understand each other without fuss. No doors slam here anymore. No dishes fly against the walls. No woman's laugh drifts down the hallway. No little feet pound up the stairs. Only an old FM radio in the kitchen murmurs classic country tunes and the morning news from KQRS. That's how an ordinary weekday begins. While the coffee maker sputters, I, an aging man to whom life has handed both love and pain, let myself remember, sometimes you have to just to stay sane. I divorced back in 2014. A deployment to Afghanistan, routine for career guard soldiers like me. Camo, checkpoints, guys who ask no unnecessary questions. I flew home early, Saturday instead of Monday, because paperwork cleared faster than expected. Dawn, quiet stairwell. The familiar scent of the Minneapolis apartment building. My key turned, I stepped inside. Wrong size sneakers at the door, a stranger's jeans over the armchair, and then oil on canvas. My wife tangled in someone else's arms. Bed sheets in knots, her wide-eyed fear, his cocky half grin. I couldn't forgive. It wasn't pride. Something inside simply snapped like a blade driven in and left to rust. I sold my pickup, hired an attorney. The custody fight was brutal, but I won. My son, 10, stood beside me without a word. My daughter, 6, clung to my hand as if it were a life raft. We managed, no whining, no self-pity. I worked swing shifts at the rail yard. They went to school. The house in St. Paul wasn't fancy, but it was ours. 5 bedrooms, warm in winter. Floors I'd laid myself, yard toys bought bit by bit. We held on. Then came 2019, a buddy's birthday cookout out in Stillwater. Brisket, light beer, old friends. She was there. Leah, large brown eyes, shy smile. Flinched at sharp laughs, winced when someone slammed a cooler lid. Later a friend whispered, her husband's a bully. Tracks everything she does, explodes when he drinks, smacks her and the kids. 2 girls, 4 and 11. We texted after that. Nothing heavy, stickers, check-ins, goodnight notes. Half a year passed. Then, could we talk? We sat in my truck outside her duplex. She spoke fast, half whispering, scared that neighbors might hear. I, a man who'd stopped believing in second chances, felt something thaw beneath old winter ice. I asked my kids, now 17 and 12. They traded glances. Dad, if she's kind and her girls are safe with us, bring them. I drove over, alone. Expected a brute. Met a scrawny 5'5" drunk with a cigarette and a sneer. Words failed, fists followed. I'm not proud, yet I'd do the same. We packed Leah's things, buckled her daughters in, headed home. A new life started. Her girls accepted me instantly. Mine were cautious at first, then the 4 blended like cousins at a long reunion. Mornings were a blur. Elementary school, middle school, my son's community college, my graveyard shift. Leah cleaned, cooked, laughed again. Evenings, the big oak table buzzed with voices. It felt unreal, peaceful. We married. 30 days between her divorce decree and our courthouse vows. Nearly a year of calm. Then, it unraveled. Her youngest let it slip. Mom sees the other guy when you're at work. I doubted, then checked. Truth hurts fast. I sent all 4 kids to Valley Fair for the day. Rides, funnel cakes, prepaid wristbands. Then sat across from Leah at the dining table. Quiet, no shouting. Why? She sighed. Everything's fine here, maybe too fine. You don't yell, you don't hit, you barely drink, there's no music blaring. The house feels like a clinic. With him, it's crazy, alive. He swears he's changed, won't lay a hand on me again. And well, the sex is wild. The floor seemed to tilt. Anger never flared, only emptiness. I grabbed a duffel, drove 3 nights on overtime, slept in the crew cab. Came back, she was gone. House key hooked neatly on the dog's leash. Goodbye. 3 days later, she returned for a box from the closet. Stood in the doorway, hair covering her face. I saw the bruise. Purple, swollen, ugly. Felt nothing. No pity, no rage, just hollow. A year I patched myself up. Work helped. Steel tools occupy restless hands. One evening that same buddy said, "Quit rescuing folks who live in mud. Some need it like air, prov bile. Now it's just me and my son." He's 21, works IT, lifts weights. My daughter married last fall, moved to Denver. Her husband's a vascular surgeon. They're fine. Nights, my boy and I sit quietly, sometimes chess, sometimes ribs on the smoker. He laughs when I crash at 9, I grumble when he stumbles in at midnight, and the house is silent. True silence, the kind that says, "It's over, keep walking. You made it, you're alive." Mornings always start the same. Cinnamon coffee in a travel mug, a half-awake drive on autopilot, out of the driveway, onto the loop, into the downtown parking garage. Lights on in the office, a few clicks, and the screen fills with spreadsheets, emails to DOS. I'm 38, old enough to not chase approval, young enough to still feel every heartbeat. Middle management, not an executive, but not some guy fetching coffee either. My team respects me. My boss leaves me be. I look the part, pressed shirt, clean haircut, polished shoes, a quiet wristwatch. I know how to listen without interrupting, how to crack the right joke at the right time. I don't preach. I don't overshare. I'm married. Not perfectly, but married. 15 years now. My wife. She's like that old playlist you keep in your car. You know every note, every lyric, even the ones that annoy you. There are things that still make me respect her. There are things that drive me crazy. Sometimes it's warm, sometimes it's distant. Sometimes we don't speak for a day, then argue, then suddenly laugh at something dumb in the kitchen. That's marriage. Real marriage. No Instagram gloss, just two people with a shared world, kids, a home, a past. You don't just drag and drop that into the trash. And in this world, there's me. A guy who hears people whisper behind his back, "You? Still faithful? Why? You're a good-looking guy, successful. What's the deal?" They say I could have a line out the door. Women smile, flirt, sometimes linger in conversation a little too long, but no one ever crosses the line, and I don't invite them to. One of the women in my department is Rachel. She's 30, sharp, heels every day, always has a comment that makes the room laugh. The office lights up around her. Sometimes she jokes with a twist. Sometimes she bends just a little lower for a folder. If I were 25, I probably would have fallen. Now, I just smile back. The other day she said, "You're always so decent. Guys like you don't exist." I shrugged. They do. You're just not looking in the right places. My coworker Kevin has that permanent smirk. Come on, man. Every guy's got issues at home. You fix that stuff on the side. That's how it works. He doesn't know I've got issues too. Evenings where my wife and I sit across from each other and the kitchen table feels like the Atlantic Ocean, where everything about me seems to irritate her. The way I chew, the way I scroll, the way I breathe. And her? She drives me up the wall with the way she clicks the remote, the way she says figures under her breath, the way her eyes roll like it's a tick. But I don't leave. I don't go looking for a second act for my soul. You know why? Because cheating isn't about sex. It's about betrayal. It's knowing you're walking out the door planning to lie. It's the moment your gaze changes, when your thoughts are no longer where they should be. One night becomes a snowball, and suddenly you're standing in the hallway, eyes to the floor, saying, "I didn't mean to. I don't know how it happened. But I know. You always know." It's easy to blame the other person when a marriage starts unraveling. She's cold, she's tired, she doesn't notice me, she doesn't inspire me. But let's be honest, I'm no saint either. I'm not always kind, not always patient, not always the first to say sorry. I've got my flaws. I just believe that if you said I'm in, then stay in, or leave like a man. But sneaking around? That's not about passion, that's about weakness. Tonight we're at the kitchen table. Her eyes look heavy. I sip tea. The TV mumbles in the background, no one really watching. "You stayed late again?" she asks. "Work?" She nods. Then quietly, "Are we okay?" I pause, weigh my words. I don't want to lie. It's not always easy. But I'm here. On purpose. She doesn't say thank you, just looks at me, then stands, goes to the cabinet, and brings out those chocolate chip cookies I like. The ones she only buys when she remembers. We eat in silence. But it's something. It's still something. Sometimes people say, you just haven't met the right temptation yet. Maybe. Or maybe I've just learned to say no to myself before I start saying yes to trouble. And if you're reading this, looking for a way to justify your own affair, don't blame it on her, or him, or life. That's all you. When you want out, you look for excuses. When you want to stay, you look for ways. I'm just here, living. No drama, no side stories. And somehow that quiet loyalty feels like strength, maybe even love. I never knew how the end of a family begins. I used to think it came with shouting, slamming doors, tears, someone packing a suitcase. But sometimes it's just one random touch, a stranger's hand, someone else's words, a joke meant to be funny that shatters everything. It happened yesterday in Portland, just outside the Riverside Mall. My wife and I were walking from the parking lot, keeping a careful distance. Things between us were fragile, like porcelain. You don't throw it out, but you know one wrong move and it cracks. We just come through a rough patch. My fault. I won't deny it. There were lies, a broken trust, a long road of never again and almost getting to I forgive you. We were barely breathing the same air again, not close but not broken. And then, this. A young woman passed by, maybe 20, blonde, light jacket. As she walked by, she ran her hand across my lower back, far too familiar for a stranger. I turned, confused, and she leaned in just enough and said softly but loud enough for my wife to hear, "Good to see you. I get it. Tomorrow, same time." Then she walked off, like nothing had happened. I froze. My mind went blank. My wife gripped her purse tighter. "What the hell was that?" she asked. I started stammering, said I didn't know her, said it was probably a prank. "A prank? Are you serious?" Her eyes were filled with a pain that doesn't lead to questions, it just breaks. A few feet away, I noticed two guys. One held a phone, the other an action cam, laughing, whispering, occasionally glancing our way. That's when I realized it wasn't random. It was staged, a prank, a so-called social experiment, a video for strangers to laugh at online. But for us, it was devastation. At home, it blew up. The kind of argument where no one yells but everything is said. I swore it wasn't me, promised to prove it, told her I'd find the video, show her, "Look, see, it's not real, it's them, not me." But she didn't believe me. And maybe it wasn't about belief anymore. Maybe she just couldn't carry it anymore. She left, took our daughter, went to her sister's. I was alone. All night I searched. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram Reels, even Reddit threads and random Facebook groups. I searched by hashtags, by location, typed every combination I could think of. Nothing, not a single clip, no trace. And then I understood, without that video, I'm no one, just another guy making excuses. Meanwhile, those two with the cameras, they're probably editing my life falling apart, adding music and laugh tracks for likes and comments. I'm not writing this for sympathy or shares. I'm not a hero. I've made my own messes. But this wasn't one of them. This was someone else's joke, played in the worst possible moment, with the worst possible people. If only they knew how fragile we were. If only they realized a child now has two homes instead of one. That I might never sleep beside my wife again, all for a few laughs online. So to whoever filmed that, if you're reading this, if you still have any shred of conscience left, please, post the video. Or send it to me. Give me a chance to defend the truth. You wanted views? You'll get them. Just give me the one thing I need, a way to show her that this wasn't mine to carry. Because right now, with nothing to show, I'm the liar again. And maybe this time, for good. And to anyone who thinks pranks are just harmless fun, sometimes behind your laughter, there's a life falling apart.
I guess it's my turn to share my story, just because keeping all of this inside has become unbearable. People will judge, throw words at me, tell me I should have minded my own business. Honestly, I don't care anymore. After everything I've been through, mentally, emotionally, and just in reality, there's not much left to lose. I had a sister, older than me. Her name was Amanda. Until recently, she was the only person in my family I could call truly close. Amanda had two little kids. Logan was barely a year old back then, and Emma was just over 2. Her husband Mike was a decent guy. Quiet, reliable, hardworking. Not some superhero, but a family man. He worked long shifts at a warehouse, tried to save up, always fixing something in their small house. Amanda, though, she always wanted more. A bigger car, nicer clothes, vacations, a brand new kitchen, normal dreams, I guess. Except her expectations never quite matched reality. It all started with her endless complaints. Mike doesn't earn enough. We're living like poor people. I'm stuck at home with the kids and no one helps. She drilled it into Mike's head so deeply that he signed up to deploy overseas as a private contractor. He wasn't military, but he could work security on bases and earn nearly triple his salary. She told him it would only be for a year, enough to buy a decent car, renovate the kitchen, set up savings for the kids, and finally live the life she wanted. I was completely against it, but no one asked me. No one in our family ever really listened to me anyway, so he left. Promised he'd be back soon. Promised it was temporary. At first, everything was fine. Amanda held up okay. My parents pitched in with groceries and watched the kids every now and then, but soon they got tired of it. We're too old for this, they said. It's your life, your kids. We raised ours. So they backed off, and Amanda was left alone with 2 babies. One still in diapers, the other just starting preschool. I stepped up. Nights after work, weekends, whatever I could do. I had my own life too. A full-time job, my boyfriend, my own bills, but she was my sister. Back then, anyway. Then Amanda started changing. Her calls turned darker. I wonder how much life insurance pays if he doesn't come back, she asked me once, her voice completely flat. Maybe it would be easier with the kids that way. At least we'd have money. I thought she was having a breakdown. Sleep deprivation, depression. But then I realized, no, she was seeing it as a transaction. Soon her loneliness turned into something else, restlessness. She started complaining about how boring her life was. My 20s are slipping away, she'd whine. I suggested, put Emma in daycare a couple days a week, get a part-time job, meet people, feel useful. She snapped, what? You want me to work at Starbucks? That's humiliating. I already sacrificed my body having these kids. Now I'm supposed to sacrifice my pride too. One evening I came over unannounced, like I often did. I had a key to her place. We both had each other's. I walked in and instantly froze. A large men's leather jacket was hanging by the door. Boots on the mat. Not Mike's. Different size, different style. Amanda came out of the kitchen, saw my face, and blurted out some nonsense about Dad stopping by. But our dad is shorter than me, and these boots look like they belong to a linebacker. The next day, she called me sobbing, told me everything. How she met a guy online, a widower with no kids, just moved to town. He understands me, she cried. He makes me feel alive. I've been so alone. I deserve this. I sat there silent, feeling my stomach twist. What about Mike? I finally asked. He's risking his life out there, for you, for the kids. She sniffled, wiped her nose, and said, "And what about me? Am I supposed to just suffer here alone forever?" I told her the truth, that what she was doing was betrayal, pure and simple. That marriage wasn't just about vacations and matching Christmas pajamas. It was about loyalty, about standing by your partner when it's hard. That if I ever saw this other guy again, I'd tell Mike everything, straight to his face. She cried and swore it was over, said she understood. I wanted to believe her. 2 weeks later, it snowed so hard the whole city shut down. Roads were blocked, offices closed. I decided to surprise her, bring groceries, play with Logan and Emma, maybe bake cookies with them. I unlocked the door, walked in, and froze mid-step. Some half-naked guy was chasing Emma around the living room, wearing nothing but a towel. Logan was crawling at his feet, giggling. The man turned and stared at me. Amanda walked out of the bathroom, hair wet, wearing a silk robe. We just stood there, the four of us, in heavy silence. I felt like my lungs stopped working. That evening, I sat down and messaged Mike. It took me hours to write it all out. Every detail, every date, what I'd seen. I hesitated before hitting send, but I did it. Within minutes, he called. For the longest time, he didn't speak. I thought the call had dropped. Then I heard him crying. This man, halfway across the world, surrounded by sand and barbed wire, wept like a child into the phone. "Thank you," he whispered. "And I'm sorry." Then the line went dead. An hour later, I was blocked by both of them. Word got around eventually. Amanda told everyone I was lying, said I was on medication, unstable, that I'd always been jealous of her. My parents, they knew who I was. They knew I wasn't crazy, but they still said, "You could have kept quiet. Breaking up a family is the worst sin." They cut me off too. Now I have no sister, no niece or nephew, no parents who call to check in. All of that is gone. The only thing left is the memory. Me standing in that living room, holding a grocery bag, staring at a stranger in a towel, while 2 kids laughed, not knowing their world was about to crack in half. I don't regret it, not for a second. I chose the truth. And yeah, maybe that left me alone. But I'll take being alone with a clean conscience over living in someone else's lie any day. I just hope if karma exists at all, Amanda gets back exactly what she planted in this world.
In the fall of 2017, I moved to Chicago. At the time, it felt like everything was just beginning. A new life, new possibilities. As they say, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. I had a few $100s in my pocket, a good supply of determination, and a heavy sense of weariness from small-town life behind me. The city greeted me with wind and gray skies, but I didn't care. Aesthetics weren't a priority. 3 days after arriving, I landed a job as a low-voltage electrician. Not glamorous work, but solid enough for a fresh start. I stayed in a shared dorm room in an old industrial building, bare bones but livable. There was a mattress on the floor, a boiling kettle, scribbles on the walls from former tenants, and a fine layer of dust on the windowsill, like it had been waiting for someone new to show up. After a couple of weeks on the job, I realized I needed a laptop to configure equipment on site. One with a working battery, since power wasn't always guaranteed on location. I found a listing on Craigslist, affordable, seemed in good shape. Reached out to the seller, and we agreed to meet near the Logan Square subway station. The guy waiting for me looked about 25. Friendly, backpack slung over one shoulder. He pulled out the laptop, powered it on. Everything seemed to check out. Said he was selling it for his sister, who didn't have time to deal with it herself. Pretty standard story. I handed over the cash, he thanked me, shook my hand, and disappeared into the crowd. That was the last I saw of him. Back at my room, I unpacked the laptop, set the kettle to boil, and powered it up. No password screen. The seller hadn't wiped anything. The browser was still open, tabs filled with social media profiles, messages, and photos. I paused. It felt like I was standing in front of a door to someone else's life. All I had to do was turn the knob, and there'd be no going back. Curiosity won. I told myself it was just a technical sweep, just checking for leftover files. But I knew that was a lie. And that's how I met Kelsey, the laptop's original owner. A young woman, apparently also new to Chicago, originally from Indiana. Lived with a roommate in a tiny apartment, worked odd jobs, took out payday loans, tried to get by. Her messages with her boyfriend were a mess. One day he loved her, the next he screamed at her, then he begged her back. A shaky emotional roller coaster. Arguments, suspicions, crying emojis. It all read like she was running from her own reality. She didn't seem to want a steady job, or maybe didn't know how to get one. Her roommate, Dana, also from Indiana, came off more focused and driven, not without quirks, but sharper. Dana had a boyfriend named Mike. In their messages, he came across like the perfect guy. Caring, generous, reliable. The photos showed a slim guy with a kind face, always standing next to his well-loved Honda Civic. He drove the girls around, lent them money, gave thoughtful gifts. He believed in love, you could tell. Then came September. The chats between the girls got more personal. They started fantasizing about a better life. Upscale restaurants, expensive clothes, men in suits, talk about making it big. Eventually, a new character popped up, a man in his 40s from Miami. He invited them to a staff training retreat, promised to cover flights, hotel, food, even some leisure time. The word training was clearly a front. Nobody was under any illusions. They discussed it for 5 minutes, flights booked, bags packed. Stories made up for the guys, it's a work thing, we'll be busy, don't worry. Dana hugged Mike goodbye. Kelsey sent her boyfriend a heart emoji and a short love you text. 2 weeks of Florida sun. Photos showed beaches, champagne glasses, hookah smoke. A man in a white shirt with the shadow of a wine glass across someone's leg. Their chats were full of giggling, inside jokes, and vivid recaps of their sexual adventures with the passionate Miami guy. There were lines like, "Mike is such a sweetheart. If only all guys were like that. And we make the perfect team, babe." I read through it all like someone watching a play with a tragic ending you can't stop. I felt disgust, sadness, and this oddly naive craving for justice. I knew it wasn't my business, but I couldn't look away. It just felt too raw, too open, too wrong. When the girls came back, they messaged each other about how great everything had gone. Kelsey texted Dana, "He's not my type, but did you see that watch?" Followed by a stream of laughing emojis. Dana replied, "It's all about the vibe. Mike will be fine. He's a good guy." That night, I couldn't sleep. The wind howled outside. I had to be up at 6 for a job site in Joliet, checking signal cables near a chemical plant. But I sat at the desk, staring at the screen. My hand moved on its own. I opened the messages, selected the key threads, screenshots, a few photos, dialogues without ambiguity, just raw, detailed truth. Stuff no one was meant to see. I logged into Kelsey's account, opened her chat with Mike, wrote one line, "Take a look," attached the files. 5 minutes later, she must have noticed the breach. The accounts were immediately shut down. Passwords changed, all sessions logged out. I closed the laptop, lay down on the mattress, pulled my jacket over me like a blanket. Morning was coming, and so was another workday. What happened after that, I don't know. I didn't want to know. I was just a bystander. A stranger handed someone else's suitcase full of secrets. But maybe, just maybe, that night someone learned a truth they were never meant to hear. When I was in law school, I worked part-time as an assistant at a small but reputable law firm. The job wasn't hard. Carry documents, read through case files, sit in on hearings, and learn from the experienced attorneys. I took the internship seriously. I wanted to see how all the theory we were cramming in class actually played out in real life. I found family court cases the most gripping. Real emotion, real stakes, better drama than any stage play. There's one case I'll never forget. On paper, it looked like a routine divorce. The client was a man in his early 40s, tall, calm, well-dressed, polite, but his eyes, they looked worn, like someone who had aged 10 years in a month. He and his wife had 3 children. The oldest was 12, the middle one 7, and the youngest 3. He was a business owner, ran a mid-sized construction company, spoke clearly with no bitterness, said divorce was necessary, it's the right thing to do. At first, it seemed like his wife just wanted to leave quietly, no drama. But it turned out to be more complicated. The man had discovered his wife was cheating, the usual way, found messages by accident. I wasn't snooping, he said, just stumbled upon something and couldn't unsee it. Then I started connecting dots, and everything fell into place. The affair was confirmed. Worse yet, there was a strong chance the youngest child wasn't his. He filed for divorce, wanted to keep it civil, said he was willing to pay child support, split the assets, no court fights, as long as the kids were spared the pain. They didn't ask for any of this, he said quietly. There was no anger in his voice, just a kind of sadness, a sense of acceptance. At first, his wife seemed to agree, but something shifted. Maybe pride, maybe fear he'd go through with a paternity test and drag it into a financial battle. At the next hearing, out of nowhere, her lawyer filed a motion requesting DNA testing. Her request, not his. She stood up in court and said loud and clear, "If you're so sure you've been lied to, then test them all. Go ahead. Maybe you'll be ashamed when you see the truth." She said it with defiance, almost a performance. But beneath that anger, you could hear something else. Anxiety. The attorney I worked for glanced at me and shook his head. I didn't understand why at the time. Later I would. The process dragged on. The test was scheduled. In the meantime, it was all just legal procedure. Filings, formal responses, positioning. The husband remained calm, too calm. The wife grew tense, defensive, more aggressive in her tone, as if trying to provoke a reaction, find some weakness. And then, the final hearing. The results were in. The judge opened the folder, flipped through the papers, and paused. For a few seconds, she just sat there staring. I saw something I'd never seen before, a judge completely lose her composure. No emotion in her voice, just stunned stillness. She read out paternity, not established, for any of the 3 children. The room went silent. The man sat perfectly still, hands resting on his knees, head slightly bowed. He didn't move, didn't say a word. And his wife, she said nothing for a moment. Then in a voice so soft it barely reached the mic, like she was talking to a friend in her kitchen, she said, "Well, I thought at least 2 were his. How am I supposed to find their dads now?" The air just froze. No outrage, no breakdown, no shouting, just silence. Somewhere behind us, a clerk dropped a pen. It rolled across the tile floor, the sound cutting through the stillness like a pin in a cathedral. The judge wrapped up the formalities. The session was closed. We stepped out of the courtroom. The man turned to thank the attorney, shook my hand too, then walked away. No hesitation, no looking back. There was no anger on his face, just emptiness, like he had just closed the book on one life and was quietly stepping into another, stripped of illusions. That day, I understood something about the truth. It doesn't always come loud. Sometimes it arrives cold, quiet, and merciless. And it shows up right when you least expect it. It happened on one of those Saturdays where you plan to be out for just a couple of hours, but somehow you end up getting home late, exhausted, hungry, and with no clear idea of where the day even went. I was trying to find a warehouse. A buddy had asked me to swing by and check out some leftover materials that might be useful for a cabin project. He texted the location and said, "It's simple, you won't get lost." Sure thing. I left after lunch, punched the address into Google Maps, and everything seemed fine. until I got into the industrial zone. You know the type. Big gray buildings, cracked asphalt lots, weird side roads, and zero signs on anything. And then the GPS just lost its mind. Started looping me around, sending me down dead ends, pointing me toward random abandoned loading docks. I tried restarting the route, turning around. Nothing helped. I called my friend. No answer. Finally, I gave up and decided to head back toward the highway and just go home. By the time I got out of that maze, the sun was setting. I got home completely drained, like I'd spent the day hauling bricks instead of driving. The house was quiet. My wife was in the kitchen. The kids were at their grandma's. I tossed my jacket over a chair and collapsed onto the couch. I had just started to stretch out when my phone buzzed from the windowsill. My wife was passing by, so I asked without thinking, "Hey, Sarah, can you check who that is?" I'm too tired to get up. She picked it up, glanced at the screen, and then pause. I didn't notice it at first, just silence. Then she looked up and very calmly, almost flatly, read aloud, "Tell us about your experience at Ocean Breeze Spa." That's when I realized the day wasn't quite over yet. "What's that?" she asked, same calm tone. But I knew that tone. That tone's more dangerous than yelling. What spa?" I said, sitting up as if I could hear better from a different position. She silently turned the screen toward me. It was a notification from Google, a request to leave a review. Ocean Breeze Spa, of course. Looked like I'd spent the afternoon relaxing at a day spa instead of chasing scrap wood across a junkyard. I started explaining. It had to be a mistake. I told her I'd been lost in the industrial district, that the GPS probably logged my location, and maybe this spa was just next to the warehouse I'd been circling. I hadn't even seen a spa. Just fences, concrete, pipes. Who puts a spa there? But the more I explained, the dumber it all sounded. I mean, seriously, I was in the middle of nowhere looking for a warehouse, and somehow a spa was next door, and my phone thought I went in? I didn't even believe it myself. She just stared at me, and that silence was worse than any argument. "So you went to a spa?" she finally asked. "No, I didn't even see the place. You know me." "Well," she said, turning back toward the kitchen, "now I'm not so sure." And off she went, with my phone. I just sat there in the hallway, half out of my jacket, still wearing my shoes, feeling this weird guilt, like I had snuck off to steam and sip beer while she was home making dinner. We barely talked that evening. Dinner was quiet and cold, and I slept on the couch. The next day, I went full detective mode, dug up the address, cross-checked it on maps, zoomed in on the satellite view. Sure enough, the spa was literally next door to that warehouse. Like, wall to wall. Took screenshots, printed them out like some kind of courtroom exhibit, and showed her. She looked, sighed, and just said, "Still weird how these kinds of coincidences only ever happen to you. So yeah, good luck trusting GPS after that."